Take a leap of faith through the personal experiences that we believe shows something continues to exist after death. First off, it's probably fair to ask, who are these two people up here telling you all this stuff? Where do they come from, and why should I listen to anything they've got to say? We've been on a spiritual path for well over 50 years. Patricia and I were raised Catholic, but we left the church early in our adult lives, and I know your stories out there, so I know a lot of you have done the same thing. And then we started our respective search for spiritual meaning and the answers to our purpose here on earth. During those 50 years, we studied with various esoteric perspectives. Some of them you're probably familiar with, the Rosicrucians, this church, which is New Thought. Now, we spent the last 4 decades, new slide, Patricia. There we go. Studying with teachers across 5 different Eastern disciplines around the world. We have been students of Yogananda and the Kriya Yoga teachings since the 1970s. This is our Yogananda lineage. You probably can see it in that photograph. Concurrently with that, for 12 years, we studied Sufism. We've done retreats with legendary masters like Sri Goenka, who brought Vipassana meditation to the West, and Shunryu Suzuki. Most importantly, we've spent the last 5 years, actually all through the COVID lockdown, with Swami Sarva Priyananda, whose teachings on consciousness brought us to where we are now. We were initiated by Yogananda's Kriya Yoga lineage and the Sufi lineage, and told to go out and teach this work, which we've been doing for the last 20 years. Now, all of these religions and teachings have a sameness to them. They all teach universal oneness. They use breath work to calm the mind. They focus on mindfulness, and they teach a powerful way to understand consciousness. There's some chairs up here if you need to. Okay. Now, neither one of us are scientists, but we do wallow around in quantum physics, and we investigate whatever is trending in those disciplines, especially the topic of consciousness as it applies to our spiritual teachings. Okay, look around the room, everybody. Look at who's here with you. Okay? This presentation is going to last 2 hours, and the topics that we're covering this afternoon are the equivalent of what we do in a 3-day retreat at Dayspring in Ellington. So we're going to go sliding across the highlights and cover the important parts that you can take home with you. I talked about Swami Sarva Priyananda during COVID. During that time, Patricia and I also decided we need to review the soul's journey about reincarnation and near-death experiences and life between lives. We had done a retreat and written this book back in, oh God, when was it? 2021 in an online retreat. And about 50 people sat through the arduous Zoom presentations. So Bob Waxman contacted us in summer last year, and he said, hey, how'd you like to do a presentation for the IANS group, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies. So we said, yeah, we can do that, no problem. So we said, you know, if we're going to do that, we ought to refresh the book. And that's what we did with this book, which is, it's called The Soul's Journey, A Scientific and Esoteric View of Reincarnation and Life Between Lives. It's been reprinted, and it expands on all the material we're going to cover today. It's available for purchase in the back. Wendy is still anchoring the chair in the back. And then we're going to open to, near the end, a meditation that Patricia will lead. And then we'll open it to you to ask whatever questions you were afraid to ask at Bob Waxman's lecture. Okay, next slide. Why this topic now? I said about looking around the room, there's a lot of people like me with white hair. And we are baby boomers. We were the largest influx of births on the planet, arriving between the end of 1945 and 1964. If you look at this chart, I think it was around 2005, we hit our peak with 77 million of us on the planet. Then we started to leave, and we've been leaving ever since. And here's the sobering statistic. If you go across the back of the slide to 2060, I venture it's going to be shorter than 2060, given the world situation. But by 2060, all of us are out of here. So that's why the topic is timely. And if we're departing the planet in droves, it seems like it's a really good idea to find out what's going to happen. Where are we going after death? Which takes us to the question that if something does survive after death, where is it? What is it? And where does this thing go? So let's talk about what, first of all, we'll get into the soul, but let's talk about reincarnation and what is reincarnation. And very simple, very simple. It's an Eastern lineal teaching that says the soul is born into a body, it gets here on the world stage, it grows up, and after about 85 years or so, it leaves. There you spend a period of time in the astral plane. The Buddhists say it's only 49 days. Others say hundreds of thousands of years. Then the soul is reborn into another body, and it does this over and over and over. That's linear reincarnation. But there's also an esoteric teaching on reincarnation, and it's a little bit more complex. It explains that the soul incarnates through 11 different levels of consciousness. You're going to hear a lot about consciousness this afternoon. And it may stay in one of those levels for eons of time or slip through them quickly. In the different dimensions, all the lifetimes are happening at the same time. That is one of the teachings of esoteric reincarnation. Each of these simultaneous incarnations have different outcomes in each of the timelines based on what you are choosing in each one. And as the past, present, and future blend together as one, what's happening in one timeline is affecting the other one concurrently. No less an authority than Yogananda's teacher, Sri Yukteswar, explains one of the dimensions. Jeannie knows this by heart. In chapter 43 of Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda is grieving the death of Sri Yukteswar. He's isolated himself in his upper room, and he spends most of his time in meditation. And then, one day, Sri Yukteswar appeared in the room, not like some ghostly apparition, but in physical form. Physical to the degree that Yogananda jumped up from where he was, threw his arms around his master, hugging him and weeping to see him again. He told Yogananda that he, Sri Yukteswar, was still very much alive, but he was incarnated at the present time, and he had bilocated to this room Yogananda was in, but he was living in the planet Hiranyaloka. He described it as an illumined astral planet, and that it was illuminated and populated by immortal yogis. These were highly advanced spiritual beings who were ridding themselves of astral rebirthing. Sri Yukteswar said that Hiranyaloka was located in a richly refined dimension of existence that was far beyond the density of the physical world, could not coexist with it. It's filled, if you guys are attending the blue light meditations on once a month on the second Saturday, listen to this. It's filled with blue and white radiant light beings guiding the planet. Yogananda asked him, how many lifetimes does a soul go through? This is where esoteric reincarnation catapults itself into quantum physics. Sri Yukteswar told Yogananda the soul went through, wait for it, because a lot of you write me texts and emails, Joe, this is my last incarnation. I've decided I've had enough and blah, blah, blah. He said the soul goes through 8 million lifetimes. Saddle up, babies. This is really huge because we tend to think of Earth and human existence when we talk about reincarnation, right? And we've got this very narrow view of it. In fact, existence and everything in it, in existence, lives, dies, and is reborn constantly. In Sri Yukteswar's book, The Holy Science, he explained the Hindu teachings on the precession of the equinoxes. Now listen carefully, because it's not just you reincarnating. He said planets, solar systems, galaxies, and universes go through repeating cycles in and out of existence. Some cycles are short, some are long. So how does this blend with esoteric reincarnation? Well, this slide shows you cosmic, universal, and planetary reincarnation. He said there's a cosmic age that's known as the age of the Supreme Creator. It's when something emerges out of seemingly nothingness. That cosmic age, you can't even, I tried to put zeros behind this. I called some mathematician at FSU and I said, help me with 3.11 trillion years. There weren't enough, I ran off the page of it didn't work. But it's got 12 zeros after the 3. And it comes in and out of existence in the exact same way and regularity that a human does. While we're down here like little ants doing this, the cosmic age has got the big scope, reincarnating and closing down. Now, there's a shorter universal reincarnation. That's the one on the left. You probably recognize the Big Bang image. It's 13.8 billion years. Seems like a nanosecond compared to the other one. There was an explosion and an expansion of light and a contraction back to that point of light. And this too happens with great regularity. And the Earth's planetary cycle is 4.5 billion years. And it's rolling along, but within our 4.5 billion year cycle is another one called the precession of the equinoxes. And this is next slide, Patricia. This is a very simplified slide of the diagram that Sri Yukteswar drew in his book, The Holy Science, and it dovetails with the talk on reincarnation because it depicts the planetary cycles coming in and out of existence, but it's known as the precession of the equinoxes. Humans live through thousands of incarnations in a spiral every 26,000 years. For 13,000, the rebirths are in an ascending arc. If you look on the left side of the slide, you see the we are here, just coming out of the Dark Age or the Iron Age. And we have 13,000 years to go. Now, between every one of those, if you look at the Iron Age, you look at the Bronze Age, the Silver, and then the Golden Age, there's about 150 to 250 years between each of those yugas. You're in it. It is the most turbulent. It is filled with chaos and anxieties, and it's like somebody threw the caca on the fan. It really is devastating times. Okay. In this presentation, I said we were going to get into the soul, and these cycles require us to answer a very big question, and that question is there a soul and does it exist? Because you can't talk about reincarnation without mentioning the soul. So, does the soul exist? Well, it depends on who you ask. Traditional religions, they accept the idea of rebirth, but they differ in the specifics of what happens. Like, what's reborn? How is it reborn? Where does it go between lives? Some religions accept the idea of future lifetimes like reincarnation. Some believe you get one shot and you're out of here. All of them believe there's something called a soul. Actually, almost all of them, because Buddhism is the exception. It teaches there is no individual soul that migrates from one life to the next. Rather, here's that word again, what exists is consciousness. And that consciousness is the fundamental substance of life that continues after the death of the physical body. Now, science says, nah, soul doesn't exist. They need proof. They need hard proof. They need repetitive proof. And there's absolutely no proof the soul exists in the scientific world. At least not yet. In various fields of science, like philosophy, biology, neuroscience, and quantum mechanics, that hard no is changing to a very soft, maybe. So what is the soul? It's been called a spirit. It's been called a ray of light. That's part of the offshoot of the central source of all light. But there's a much deeper esoteric meaning. And though what the soul is, I chose these three teachers to expand on what the soul is. The first one is by a Sufi master, Hazrat Inayat Khan, and he deals with the vastness and the boundlessness of the soul that's taught in the Sufi lineage. He expands the soul and extends it throughout the universe. The second one is Yogananda. He says what he says makes it more comprehensible. It's birthless, it's eternal, it's changeless. It's always the same, and it doesn't die when the body dies. This guy, most of you have never heard of. He's an Advaita Vedanta mystic teacher who we discovered during lockdown. And he goes much deeper than the other two. He's also the most difficult to comprehend. He says there is no individual soul. Rather, there is only one soul, a supreme consciousness that exists in the universe. It is undefinable, and once you give it a name, like I'm doing right now, it's immediately diminished. And the you that named it begins the never-ending spiral of separation from consciousness and source. This is all going to be covered in a 2027 retreat called Consciousness and the God Particle, which will be in Ellington at Dayspring, probably sometime in February or March. Okay, so let's go into the soul and consciousness. Next slide, Patricia. Most scientists believe that consciousness is nothing but 80-something billion neurons firing in the brain. That's it. It's what the brain is processing about whatever is happening around us. We perceive, we focus, we discriminate, we judge, we categorize, and then we react to whatever the eternal external stimuli is that's around us. But more and more of the scientists and the medical professionals who are witnessing their patients' near-death experiments and experiences, they're going out on a limb, and they're saying that consciousness may actually be a function not in the brain, but outside the brain. The only problem is they have no idea what it is or where is it located. They're asking hard questions like, how do you and I experience things? How are you experiencing me right now? I see all these faces looking back at me. How am I experiencing you? How, if I put up a tree up here or the color green, how would you experience the color green? And I guarantee it's different than how I experience it. Those experiences are internal but outside the brain's capability. It is consciousness in action. Now, religion takes a singular view of consciousness. Then, around the 20th century, science caught up and they began to converge on the topic of consciousness with religion. The renowned theoretical physicist Max Planck, he went on record stating that consciousness is the fundamental thing, and listen to this, all matter emerges out of consciousness. His statement happens to dovetail with Patanjali's and the Rig Veda, was 3500 BC, that consciousness is not just a mental state, it is the fundamental state of existence. I conclude that if consciousness is a fundamental state of existence, and nothing exists outside of that state, then the soul and consciousness must be the same thing. Now, why is it so important to understand consciousness? Because it's a fundamental understanding of reincarnation. In each incarnation and age, whether it's the 3.11 trillion, human consciousness is propelled forward so that human consciousness can experience its divine self. Each incarnation of the soul inhabiting the limited human form becomes a more expressive segment of absolute consciousness. The soul then experiences the realities that humans create because matter comes out of consciousness, and they become emanations or ambassadors of the absolute. We got a long way to go to that, but that's the goal. Max Planck went on to say in this analysis that was published, you and I are not passive spectators of the cosmos. We're not sitting around here like mushrooms. We are truly active participants, and we are creating the outer reality that we're experiencing with our minds and that emerges out of our consciousness, and we recognize it based on the consciousness each of us holds. Few yeses, few, okay. So let's go into, if you want to go deep into this stuff, check the newsletter, and you'll see when we're going to teach this at Dayspring. Okay, so let's move into the more practical aspects of reincarnation. Let's make an assumption that the soul does exist and it repeatedly incarnates in another body. Though each time it does this, it's got a different personality. That's what you're leaving behind. We theorize this to be true based on four things: our spiritual training, from the personal experiences we've had over the course of our studies, from tens of thousands of near-death experiences and hypnotic regressions, and from the reincarnation books and stories that are being published in the last decade. And the best place to start decoding reincarnation is to look at near-death experiences and the regressions that have been documented by world-renowned researchers and by the world-class facility that studies this at the University of Virginia. Where did my water go? Oh. I got it. Let's start with the near-death experiences because they really show consistent stories of people who have had the experiences when they leave the body. These experiences have come along at an important juncture in the timeline of humanity's journey and its collective soul growth. Tens of thousands of near-death experiences are documented, and there's been copious research done by PhDs, scholars, and doctors who have concluded, based on these experiences, something survives after physical death. The takeaway is people have had near-death recall describe consistent experiences. They die, they go through this tunnel, there's a bright light at the end of it. 76% report they saw a spiritual being. That being normally represents whatever religion they have grown up in. But they never waver from the story, and whatever experience they went through changes their lives in dramatic ways. 99% of them did not want to come back to Earth. But some, you don't blame them, do you? But some being, spiritual being or an angel, convinces them that they got to go back and complete whatever it was that they started out to do. All of them said that the experience removed their fear of dying, and pretty much all of them talk about a life review. The life review showed up more consistently in hypnotic regressions. 13,000 cases were reported by clinical psychologists and past life researchers, Dr. Michael Newton and Dr. Helen Wambach. Their institutes created a rich tapestry of ordinary people like you and me across the centuries being lived by the clients that they were regressing. Yet, despite 13,000 cases, the American Psychological Association says hypnotic regression is not a scientific protocol, and therefore it should not be supported by the evidence that has been given. Michael Newton's institute begs to differ with that assessment. He was a mainstream psychologist, and he was treating a man who had severe back pain. Hold on a minute. Talk amongst yourselves. Throughout his treatment, though, he was never able to get to the man's root cause of the pain. Never did it. In one session, he accidentally regressed the man, where the client said, went back before birth. The client said he was a British soldier, and he was at the Battle of the Somme in World War I. So Newton went along with it. He thought, well, this is odd. Let me see where we go with it. He asked him his name. Peggy, I think I got one. Thanks. Ricola. So Newton said, what's your name? What's your regiment? What happened to you? The man said that during the battle, he got stabbed in the back by a bayonet and died. So Newton was also, in his spare time, a history buff. So he contacted the British Military Archives and sent the information to him. They confirmed, yeah, we had a guy by that name. He was in that regiment. He died at the Somme, and he was killed from a bayonet wound. Here's the good part. Once the patient revealed the history, he was cured of the back pain. And that experience with that client changed Michael Newton's practice, and all of his regular psychological clients disappeared, and people were coming in droves wanting to be regressed. So, today, that institute alone today has 30,000 documented cases on reincarnation. Now, Dr. Helen Wambach, she used strict protocols and strict instructions to hypnotize, sometimes like this, 1,000 people in an auditorium, and she hypnotized all of them. They were asked to identify the clothing they were wearing. What shoes have you got on? Where are you? Describe the little house in front of where you're standing. She took all of this information, characterized the lives of ordinary people by timeline, by century, and time period. Uh-oh. It's okay, Susan. I didn't break it. These people were not kings or queens. They were ordinary people like scullery maids in the upper right, cabin boys on schooners. I'm going to tell you this because you can't find it anymore, but my technical genius sitting with the boot behind me managed to find Helen Wambach's actual regression. And I did the regression that she had stepping through it. I was that cabin boy in that slide you're seeing. That cabin boy died at sea in 1835. And I carry the imprints and the remnants of what that life was like. And it was not a glamorous life. I love and I admire the tall ships. When they came into New York Harbor, this girl was standing there at, oh God, what a sight it was. But I'll tell you what, I get seasick on a dock. And any boat I'm on, I don't care what size, oh God. Many reincarnation examples have come to light in the 20th and 21st century. They're all open to conjecture. Some you might believe, some you say, oh, that one's a little far-fetched. This one I'm going to share with you was well-researched and documented, and ABC News eventually included it in a primetime special. It's a compelling case, though it still has detractors. It's a story of a young boy named James Leninger, who at age 2 began having nightmares of being in an airplane that was on fire. He'd wake up screaming to his parents that, little man die, little man die. He drew this image on this slide for his father when he was 3 years old. He also had an obsession with World War II aircraft. As he got to age 4 and 5, James told his father his name was James Houston. That's James Houston in the picture on the left, 1945. He told his dad that James Houston died in World War II after being shot down in a fiery crash. He told them the aircraft carrier, how does a 3, 4, 5-year-old know an aircraft carrier from Japan? He said, I flew from the Natoma Bay aircraft carrier. Yes, it existed when the dad went looking. He named the name of the squadron he was in. And when he got older, his dad took him to meet the members still alive in that squadron and told the squadron only stories that they would know about. The book is called, that the father wrote, is called Soul Survivor, S-O-U-L, and it's included in the bibliography of your book. So what do we do when we go through reincarnation? Most of the following slides I'm going to show you were developed from our Sufi, Hindu, and the yogi teachings and training we went through for the last 40 years. Some of it also comes from our personal insights and the meditation experiences that we had. Cool, huh? I said before that each soul has hundreds and thousands of incarnations. Regression stories, we're told, Earth is the place every soul wants to go. Steady on, steady on. Last June, on his 90th birthday, the Dalai Lama was addressing a gathering of individuals, and he was asked about reincarnation and whether he was going to reincarnate one more time, and if so, where? And he said, I may be reborn on another planet if it's the wish of the higher beings that guide me. But I am much more familiar with this planet, and I feel I will better serve sentient beings on Earth by coming back here. His words are a really good place to start on how this process works. Where is Elizabeth? Look up Elizabeth. These are some of the Council of Elders. Because an intriguing aspect of Michael Newton's work on the hypnotic regressions is what happens in between the lives. You're here, you die, you're suddenly on the other side, now what? First thing you do is go meet with your council and review the lifetime. Thousands of Newton's clients said the exact same thing. The council is made up of spiritual beings who have been your guides in every incarnation since the first one. When you hear people say to you, oh, my guide said blah, 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 this is them according to the case studies that Michael Newton was talking about. If you look at this slide, you'll notice the guy in silver. That's because souls will incarnate on other planetary systems. Some have spent more time on those systems than on Earth, according to the hypnotic regressions. And there is a psychic in the house, a psychic medium, who is in the back, nodding affirmatively. ETs on those planetary systems review and guide the souls that have come from that area and are going back to that area. The council will go over the life you just went through. Did it meet the objectives that you set out before you came in? Did you manage the relationships and the interactions to fulfill the lessons you wanted to fulfill? What worked and what didn't work? An important piece to keep in mind, there is no judgment on anything that you did on Earth. And it was confirmed over and over in the case studies. If you committed suicide, if you murdered somebody, absolutely no judgment. There is never blame levied on anyone or anything that occurred. This finding is contrary to everything religion tells you. You are judged in the religious experience. You are found wanting, and you need to atone for the sins you committed. Or guess where you're going? Not one of the hypnotic regression stories said this was true. Not one. There's another noteworthy discovery in the case studies. You'd think that the big things you were doing in life really mattered. You just donated $100,000 to the so-and-so charity. Yay, you. Wrong. They said that the very smallest things were actually the biggest things that got you the brownie points and tick marks in the Akashic records. They called out someone helping, an elderly stranger who's struggling to put groceries in their car trunk. They just came out of Publix, struggling along, can hardly move. You stop your car, you get out, you help, and you put the stuff in the person's car. You're in line at the cashier, and you know you can talk in those cashier lines. And all of a sudden, the cashier is telling you about her dog that died, 13 years old, heartbroken. And you stop and you listen to that story and you empathize with that story. And it does not matter if there's 10 people behind you. They need to hear that too. Those are the check marks that matter. So, once the old life review is completed, you have an option. You can take a break from incarnating. You can remain in spirit form, or you can return very quickly. Some cases, people wait a year or two. You saw the James Houston, James Leninger. That was 68 to 1945, not that long. You could wait 1,000 years, your call. But when it's time to be reborn, you're going to meet with the council again, and you set up the kind of lessons or the purpose that you're going to address in the next incarnation. You decide if the next life is going to be a hard one or an easy one. Will it be one where your generation or the group soul that you are incarnating with changes or contributes to the global mission? Will it be an incarnation where you're working to resolve family or country karma? God knows there's eons of drama and dynamics with family dysfunctions. But there is a purpose behind each of those incarnations, and you take on immense challenges. And when you do, it results in 7 generations of healing. Okay. Overall, the soul is always nudging the ego or personality towards spiritual self-realization. So its divine origin can be discovered in each incarnation. So, you've met the council, time to come back to Earth. The life mission has been set up, and you're going to design an incarnation very much the way you design a building that you're going to construct. You need an architect to help the structure of the design. You need engineers to help build a foundation. You need plumbing and electrical, air and heat. And you're going to spend 85 to 100 years in this construction. So you're going to build this physical body, and you're also going to require psychological, emotional, and mental attributes to support the life plan choices in the 85 years. Some of them might kick in at your 50th year, your 70th year. Some kick in as a teenager. The construction material for the physical body comes from the genes of your parents and their ancestors. The body that you end up building is either going to be sturdy and strong, tall, wiry, short and square, weak or diseased. It's all dependent on whatever the council and you set up. When you see a crippled body, it might give you pause to consider it was designed by that individual and their council, and it's serving a purpose you may not be the least bit aware of. All of these items, archetypes, parents, ancestors, the spiritual path, are related to the structure of your life plan. Some people are surprised to see astrology on this chart. It was once a respected field of study in civilizations like the Sumerians and the Mayans, Babylonians, Indians. You've heard of the Farmer's Almanac, right? They use a position of the planets to configure the weather every year. Your birth and your incarnation is influenced by the astrological qualities and influences of the specific zodiac signs you were born under. Mary's a Scorpio, and Fairy Elaine's a Scorpio. If you're born with Scorpio traits, another one here, intense, passion and determination. It might fuel your profession. Or some would need the influences of Taurus to keep you grounded for the things you choose to do in life. These are all influences from the different astrological area. Generation. You'll be born into a generation of souls, all of whom come into incarnation over a 20-year period of time. And you will meet people over your lifetime in this generational grouping who are part and parcel of what is known as your soul group. You asked the question, why did all of us show up here this afternoon? The ones in the soul group, usually numbers around 5 to 25. They will coordinate their lives with yours through their own council reviews. So let's take a look at how that plays out. Because your beliefs, your emotions, your ideals, and the qualities that you have in your character, whether positive or negative, shape the incarnation along with the life lessons and the obstacles you set in place before your birth. These 4 groups, parents, religion, culture, nation, and geography, are the biggest building blocks for the structure of your incarnation. Their collective beliefs are going to influence you every single day. It begins with the parents you're born into. You've got their DNA, the body shape and size. Your race comes from them, and it colors all of your life experiences. How you treat people, your prejudices, your likes and your dislikes, all come from the parents. You've been with them before in many incarnations, in different lifetimes, and you've reversed roles with them as well. When you choose the parents, the soul experience inherits the religion or the lack of religion of those parents. Their philosophies and their beliefs become your moral and ethical compass. That is, unless for some reason something occurs on the life path where the process decides, I'm done with the religion, I'm going to try something else. I mentioned about growing up Catholic. Remember, if anybody here Catholic? Recovering Catholics, whatever? You remember when you weren't allowed to eat meat on Friday? Did you know that that was an economic thing in Italy in the Middle Ages? Yeah. The Catholic Church decided that the Italian fishing industry needed more fish. Well, if you grew up that way, it was a mortal sin. And if you ate meat on Friday, you were going, God help if you died that evening, because it was eternal damnation. I went to a friend's house. I was in college, went to a friend's house, and their parents served meat. And with great trepidation, I ate it, fully expecting, this is it. It is all over. You can see that did not happen, but it became a catalyst for me to start following a spiritual path instead of the religious one. And it fueled that experience, as traumatic as it was while I was going through it. Because honestly, I was in the cult. I read the book. And my mother reinforced it hourly. I never told her, though. But that episode forced and caused my life work to be triggered. Okay, culture. Incarnating souls also inherit the culture of the parents. It influences the food you eat, how elderly are treated, the rituals practiced by the culture, all adding challenges or soul growth to that soul's unique experiences. Now, you're also born into a nation and a geography, and the choice you make. So when you're on Facebook or social media, groaning and droning about the outside world, remember these words: you chose to be here now. Every one of us did. And we chose it to do something and to hold a light wherever there is darkness. You may choose a wealthy nation or a poor one, but those nations enhance your soul's experience in such a way that changes what you came here to do or influences what you came here to do. Let me give you an example. Being born in a third world country is a totally different life experience than being born in a wealthy one. That lady from a very poor country walks 3 to 5 miles a day, filling up those canisters with barely potable water, all the while dodging bullets from warring tribes. Now, on the other side of the fence, there's 11 million swimming pools in the United States. And those things fill up 178 billion gallons of water. And that's what's sitting around in American backyards. And that contrast from a wealthy nation with that kind of water and the other nation without water staggers the imagination. Okay, next slide, P. These influences are probably the strongest ones on your journey. Family and friends, and this gang that's here. That's why I said look around, because you probably don't recognize who they are, but go meet each other after. The soul comes in with an individual pod called a soul group, and it's roughly 5 to 25. I would venture that the women's meditation group is bigger than this. What do you all think? Yeah? Yeah. The pod, the initial pod you come in with is supposedly more intimate. And it's your parents, and your friends, your close friends. Also includes the enemies. Forget about the enemies. Their roles are always difficult to embrace because they're enemies. You forgot that they were also best friends in previous lifetimes. The ones that you call friends today, and yeah, even the enemies, will appear at different stages or points on your journey. And when you meet each other, there's an instant recognition. If you're in the meditation group, you know who each other was when you walked in the door, right? Instantly. You're positive that you have met each other before. It's a keen, sharp soul memory. And it's linking you to activating plans that the collective made before they came here. All those things when you thought, oh, I'm all alone here, there's nobody here to help me, and all of a sudden you meet one another and Katie barred the door. Yeah? And it doesn't matter if you live across the country or across the world. You can meet the person online and you will still have an instant connection. Patricia lived on the West Coast of the United States, and I was on the East Coast. We'd never met till much later in life. And we met in an online writing group. So our shared experiences in writing and the spiritual path each of us took before meeting, which, by the way, was literally like this, every step of the way. We were at the Edgar Cayce Foundation a week apart. We were studying dream workshops a week apart. We were at Self-Realization Fellowship hours apart. We were not supposed to meet till later in life. Some psychic, she was sitting in a coffee shop, and a psychic was sitting across from her, zoned out, and said, oh, you're going to meet a woman from New England. Patricia said, I've never been to New England. I don't know anybody in New England. Yeah, well, it's going to change your life. Right, Peggy? Your soul friends are going to have similar interests that you have. You're going to belong to the same organizations. You will find ease and community with them because you have known them for thousands of lifetimes. Janine is still not in the house? No. You will find soul friends who run into your car in the UTC parking lot and suddenly become best friends, and you are hugging each other instead of raising hell, why did you back into my car? And you find out that that individual asked her dead mother, send me 2 angels so I can find a spiritual group in my life, because I just moved here from San Diego. That's Janine, who banged into my car while I was in Macy's returning something, and I come out of Macy's and Patricia and this woman are hugging each other in the front of my banged-in car. And Janine said, I want to just bring you the money. We'll take care of it off the books. You tell me what it costs. Comes to our house with cash in an envelope, and 3 hours later, she leaves. How does that happen? Soul connections. Okay. I'm watching the time, Patricia said. I can feel you back there. Stop going off script. I know, I'm watching. There's another group, and that's the generational soul group. Generations are every 20 years. So the parents have a kid. Kid grows up 20 years, they have a kid, another 20 years. That's how the cycle works. Okay, this slide shows the linear generational cohorts, I call them cohorts, that come on the world stage and leave it in massive numbers. Boomers were leaving. On the left is World War II. Gen Z, the millennials, you know all about those guys. And the new ones being born now are demographic folks go back and redo the numbers and the letters. So Gen B are the babies being born right now. Okay. They come in, every generation comes in with a very powerful soul group mission. And sometimes the generations pull and push from one another, causing the contrast. One's not good and the other bad. It's just a contrast of the duality that governs how we operate in this environment on Earth. Now, they come in, these soul groups come in what I call carrier waves. And you've all been to the beach. If you live here, you've been to the beach. Watch the waves coming in. There's a seventh one every time that's taller, fatter, longer than the others. And it dominates all the other waves. Astrologers refer to these waves as generational planetary cohorts. Damn it. It's gone. It's down here. Elizabeth, I'll buy you another one. These generational planetary groups, they're born under the influence of a generational planet. The outer planets that are considered generational is they move slowly. They're out there. They move, it's not like the moon every 28 days. These guys are like 14 years, 28 years. Pluto, 248 years. So they stay in the zodiac sign a very long time, and they shape world and society views. It's a long topic, which we're not going to go into. But what these planets do and how they do it influence the generations that are living on the planet, and they create huge global impacts. The impacts are subtle seed qualities. I say they're huge, but they're subtle. The qualities contrast. You will see love and hate. You will see courage and fear, empathy, kindness. Those are seed qualities that are inherent in the field and the atmosphere around us. They're always there. You are always bombarded and being influenced by them. You don't see it, they're invisible, but they are there. They anchor themselves into each of the generations that come here. They will change the collective consciousness of humanity and enrich and guide the experiences of the soul. They move the needle of humanity towards more altruistic behavior. Most people aren't familiar with this. They just see the outer stuff going on and decide, that must be what it is. They create direct, though abstract experiences and contrasting experiences. And what they cause is eventually the entire collective of humanity explores and experiences, and in time ultimately embraces the raising of human consciousness, step by step, inch by inch. It moves forward. Each group mission is precise. So you had a group dealing with war, and you had a subsequent group coming in dealing with peace. It required the generations of individuals in the before World War II carrier wave who came and fought in World War II. It required them to experience all the horror, all the pain, all the sufferings of war in order to understand and later embrace the altruistic seed quality that peace is a much better alternative to war. And you may still be sitting here thinking, oh God, we haven't learned the lesson. No, 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 no. I learned the lesson. Look inside of you. You learned the lesson. There are others that haven't. They'll get there. It's that inner child that responds to these seed qualities. Now, every generation is drawn to the mission, though very few recognize it as a mission, until something happens and they start to see their role evolving in it. They may be moving from a materialistic life to a spiritual one. And this is how it works in a very simple way. Spiritual avatars convene like, you remember the Elder Council with the ET and the spiritual avatars convene just like the Elder Councils do, but they deal on solar and planetary levels, and they focus their lens on human consciousness and the awareness of opening up the group soul missions in the larger cosmic cycles. And they select key souls for these missions. These key souls have had many incarnations, and they become a specific catalyst for the mission. This next slide is the key souls that came along to change whole industries, religion, government, science, organizations, and cultures worldwide. They have had many, many incarnations on Earth, and they know their roles have been part of the raising of human consciousness. So the key soul is born, and through their work on the world stage, they ignite the overall group mission. These guys are as human as they come, but they have idealistic beliefs that are ingrained along with a heightened sense of consciousness about humanity and its extraordinary potential. They incarnate with a specific purpose to bring the greater awareness to the population or to nudge the groups into a new way of thinking, being, or behaving. And their missions always require a personal sacrifice. I'm sure you recognize probably everybody on that slide, on this slide. Each was influential in changing behaviors or shining a light on an area that needed to be open to new thinking. And they all suffered in their roles. Gandhi and Anne Frank, Martin Luther King, is he up there? Yep. They gave their lives to the cause they came to do. They perform starring roles. This is really important. They perform starring roles on the world stage as either heroes or villains. Remember I said about friends and enemies? Same thing. Usually we praise the hero. Yay, everybody loves the hero. And we hate the villains. It's always understandable. But the role of the villain is more catalytic because their behavior and their activities will drive the opposing changes that cause others to recognize what is happening and to raise their individual consciousness. I'll give you an example. Michael Newton told this regression story about a woman who died in Hitler's gas chambers. In this current life, she lived a really terrified and a very lonely existence. She had not many friends. But during the regression, she saw the significant role, listen to this, she saw the significant role that the commandant of the concentration camp had played in her terror. She learned that while his actions in the camp were horrific, he chose the role of the villain at great personal sacrifice. He had been sent by the Avatar Council. This is her regression story. He had been sent by the Avatar Council to teach what happens when an entire population blindly follows an evil dictator. And in the regression, the woman recounted that after he died, the soul of the commandant was placed kind of like in an astral-type hospital. And he was there for a long, long time to recover from that incarnation. She told Michael Newton that she now saw her role and his from a place of greater compassion, but she judged his role to have been a much greater sacrifice for what humanity was being taught than what she experienced. It's a really hard lesson to hear or get your mind around, but it's more of a perspective on the role of villains on the world stage. It's not an excuse to excuse what they do or why they're doing it. Rather, to digest what their roles were as catalysts in changing the human conversation. It's not always an easy lesson. In this gang up here, for 8 of them, they jump-started soul group missions that begged the population to focus on peace, not war, to seek freedom and independence, to seek voting rights for women, and to push for racial equality and justice. The next slide, we're going to identify group missions by generation and the key souls who drove them. You've often heard of the Greatest Generation, and they fought 2 world wars, World War I and II. You know the villains in these wars, Hitler, Mussolini. You know the heroes, Churchill and Roosevelt. This group of souls brought the human collective to the qualities of sacrifice and doing the right thing, to believe in God, in patriotism, and defending the country from oppression. In that generation, 77 million souls died in World War II. 77 million. Remember the first slide? 77 million baby boomers came in. I say the universe is always in balance, and it's no coincidence that many of the people who died in World War II reincarnated when that war ended. Actually, when I went through a lot of Michael Newton's regression stories, the souls that had died in World War II or died in the Holocaust and the battlefields, they quickly came back to right the wrongs that they had experienced and witnessed in World War II. And the boomer group, our soul mission, in the center of that top slide, we replay, if you're a boomer, I hope you marched. I know some of you are still marching. But we opposed war and we supported peace and love at all costs. We brought Woodstock to the front. We marched against the Vietnam War. We marched against the draft and inequality. And we rejected any form of oppression. As we are crawling through these generations, our kids were known as the millennials, and they had different values than us. They valued diversity, tolerance for all types of people. They had different values about jobs and working. They grew up with technology, and when it was becoming a thing, they're fairly fluent in social media, and they're defined by that media. I don't talk to my daughter. I find out what she's doing on Facebook. The millennials set a group mission in place for the other technologically savvy groups that will drive the world into space exploration, artificial intelligence, and gene editing. This Gen Z is your grandchildren. They're stepping into leadership roles right now, thank God. You would agree that they use their iPhones like pacifiers? They are the most technologically literate cohort that has come along. And they're changing the dynamics of race and religion, business, gender, identity, and politics. They're the most diverse in history and more tolerant than other generations. Half of them are a racial minority, and 71% of them identify as spiritual, not religious. That's cool. And they're pushing aside the elderly politicians, thank God. And they're doing real work like managing mental health. They're working on stopping gun violence, working on climate change. Maxwell Frost from the middle of Florida, he's the first Gen Z representative elected to Congress at the age of 25. I know from my grandchildren that they are disrupting the old business models about when all the CEOs said, you got to come back to work. Work's in the office now. Nah, maybe not so much, because they didn't go back. They are setting the patterns in place for the last two, Gen A and B, the new babies being born, because they're going to do things that you and I can't even imagine doing. They're going to be doing gene editing. Patricia has this thing. She goes online, and she'll come back with this list of things. Oh, my God, look at what they're doing about this disease or that disease or Alzheimer's and it's, I mean, we think all the news is bad. It's not bad. You just have to know where to go look to find it. Good stuff's going on all the time. So, You're going to meet your group council pretty soon. This is not a projection that everybody's going to drop dead when they walk here. Did I work with my group well? Was it a life well lived? So let's flip back to consciousness. What is the fundamental source of consciousness, and how do we find it? Consciousness is all there is. It's everywhere, and it's in everything. It's not just a fundamental aspect of existence. It's what we use to create our realities and the group stories that we are sharing with one another. This slide tries to show this amorphous field. Physics says everything is energy. In that field of energy, or what I call this field of consciousness, every possibility and every probability already exists. It is there waiting to become form, and you have the opportunity to make that happen. This field, whether you're aware of it or not, is consciously and, though invisible, physically around you, because you are a part of it and you are in it. You are that field. You are not this solid thing. You become like that, the atoms and the molecules that make up the form you call you. It exists whether you're aware of it or not, and you have access to this field at all times. Look carefully at this next slide, because this is how the cosmos, Patricia, you need to move on. Are you awake back there? Nothing. You see those swirls behind the words? Those are like electromagnetic currents that are there in this field. They reside there, and these words on this slide are a direct pipeline to the dialogue that your soul is having with the cosmos. This is not woo-woo. These things are real. Science has shown what these things look like. Thousands of texts go back from the traditions, and they all say the same thing. Cosmic consciousness, or the divine, or God, or whatever you want to call it, it has a never-ending, continual dialogue with the souls on earth that emanated from it. Constant. We're endowed with these techniques. You can touch the divine at any time. Fairy Elaine's writing music. She's connected to this. That's where it's coming from. If you're a writer or a musician or a scientist, you are going into that zone where the cosmic dialogue is alive, humming, and communicating with you. We have kept dream journals for 40 years. And they're chock full. The dreams up there? Yes. Chock full of info. I've experienced dreams that became visitations, and my eyes were open, and I was not asleep. I was lying in bed like I'm wide awake, and I saw the etheric spirit of a person show up in my bedroom and walk up to me. Let's show them this one. Yeah. I was in college on my way back to Florida State University when my grandmother, who I had seen a few hours before, died in the hospital. I went back, and I knew she had died. I just knew as I was driving back to Tallahassee. And 2 weeks later, and it's usually, in my experiences, my visitations from the other side usually come about 2 weeks after the person has passed. I was asleep, and I woke up because I heard a hum, a high-pitched hum. And I woke up, and I saw my grandmother walk through the wall at the bottom, back of the bedroom, and come up to the side of the bed. And I knew it was her, and she looked fabulous. She was dying of cancer in the hospital and didn't look like, if you've been, you know. She looked radiant. She was like 35 years old, dressed in a long white robe. And I said, "You're here. Where have you been?" And she said, "I came to see you because I have a gift for you." And I said, "You do? What is it?" And she said, she reached into what looked like the pockets of her robe, and she pulled out a number, golden 8, and handed it to me. And I said, "What is it?" She said, "Turn it on its side." And it's a symbol for infinity. And I continued to talk to her, and I said, "Are you going to come back? And what are you doing? And what classes? Is everything I've been..." She said, I have to go back. I said, "I have one more question. Is everything that I've been studying and everything I've been reading about, is it true?" And she said, "It is, and keep this, that infinity always present in your life." You want to have a cosmic dialogue? Yeah? Patricia, you want to take them on a journey?
Yep.
Shall I sit there, or are you going to sit there?
No, I'm going to come up there.
Okay. You need help?
Nope. See this thing on the floor?
Oh.
So Joe was doing a little talking with her hands. And yeah, here's this little thing here. That helps. And can you all hear me? Okay. So what we're going to do is just take a little short guided meditation. So if I want you to be comfortable, not worried about stuff falling off your lap. So just be able to focus. And you maybe wonder, what is the point of reincarnating? What is the point of living a life? And I think you've heard the expression, walk a mile in someone's shoes. I think it's so spirit can walk lots of miles in lots of shoes. And I want to take you on a little ride that allow you maybe to imagine what it might be like to be spirit experiencing form a little bit different than what we currently are doing. So if you just want to close your eyes and breathe, just breathe. Breathe easily and naturally through your nose. Just observe your breath. Just let it be what it is. No judgment. Just aware. And now we're just going to use our imagination. I would like you to imagine that your body is made of stone, granite. It's hard, solid, impervious to wind, rain, or cold. Stone lasts a long time. So if you can imagine your body as a mountain made of stone, you are in no rush. As part of the landscape, you have a long view. You observe daily occurrences like creatures walking over your surface. Truly, you barely register it. You have a stone body. You witness forest form, grow, and pass away. It is what it is. But you remain, barely showing any signs of time passing. Just imagine that life from that perspective. Awareness, aware of being stone. And now let's change our focus. And imagine your body is made of plant material. Living wood, maybe a shrub or a tree. Feel your roots anchored securely in the soil. You're not rigid like stone. You have flexibility. Your leaves rustle, and your branches move when the wind blows. You have the ability to turn your leaves toward the sun. Rain refreshes and nourishes you. And you sleep deeply during the cold winter months. You live by cycles of sun and moon. Just imagine it. Life perceived from a plant's point of view. And now imagine that you have the body of an animal. Your skin may be covered in fur or feathers or scales. You have much greater freedom of movement. And your life is governed by weather and instinct. You know how to breathe into your fur for warmth. You seek shelter, or you possibly build a nest. You hunt for food. Maybe you gather seed or graze on abundant grasses. Just take a moment and imagine life in the form of an animal. And now very objectively and impersonally perceive life through the human form, not necessarily your personality, just what it means as a very primitive human. Your environment definitely affects you. But you have the capacity to think. You can reason and figure out how to thrive. You experience your environment with 5 senses and more, because you can appreciate the reds and golds of a sunset. You can enjoy the scent of a rose. Or savor the sweetness of a ripe piece of fruit. And you can feel the joy of laughing with friends. And take a moment to think about the gift of experiencing life from the human form. We all dream, so now I would like you to imagine that you are in a dream body, in a dream world. It feels real, but it's so different from this everyday world. In a dream landscape, anything you think about is instantly fulfilled. Time in a dream body stretches and contracts, and flying is no obstacle at all. In fact, it's normal. Your body is very elastic. It can change shape, move rapidly, or oh so slowly. Appreciate now what it means to live in that type of very mutable body, where what you think of can instantly become. And now, we're going to let go of these forms and imagine that your body is made of light. You have no shape, and space has no boundaries. You endlessly move through it. Time has no meaning, and you have no limits. You have no boundaries. You are light, endlessly expanding. And now imagine you are merely a vibration, a humming vibration and awareness, aware only that you exist. Sense this pure vibration now, pure existence. And now, even the hum fades away, and you become stillness. You are the silence. And once again, become aware that you exist. And that awareness is the hum of vibration. The first movement. And vibration causes light. Light and vibration create astral forms. And focusing on that form solidifies it. So begin to re-inhabit your human form. Feel how substantial it is. How defined it is. And now become aware of your breath. Moving in and out of this body, this gift that experiences this 3D world. And move your fingers and your toes. You can raise and lower your shoulders. This marvelous body is your soul's vehicle. And with it, you experience this three-dimensional world. So smile. You're back in your current form. Open your eyes and enjoy it. Hope that gave you a little insight into what the ultimate soul, the one, experiences. I think it's incredibly difficult for us to imagine eternity. We think, oh, I don't want to do this again, but eternity is a long time. It doesn't end. You're going to have more and more experiences. So let's make the most of it.
How are we doing? Well, I know. No. You go into spaciousness and it's like not coming back. Well, guess what? It's 3:03 and we haven't done questions. We'll sit here and answer anything you want. If you need to go, drive safely. Thank you for being here. If you have questions, ask away. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
In a past life regression, what's the purpose to take the individual through the prior death experience?
What is the purpose?
To go through the death experience. Right?
I'm not sure I understand.
When I had a past life regression, they take you through all you described, clothing, what you're wearing, and then they take you through your death experience in the period that you selected, whichever time that is. What was the purpose of going through the death experience?
It wasn't necessarily to go through the death experience. It's whatever the client was telling either Helen Wambach or Michael Newton. They have a set protocol that they go through. And sometimes the individual might stay focused on the actual death experience. In the case of the man that was stabbed by the bayonet, it wasn't so much the stabbing of the actual death experience itself. It was more for him to identify what had occurred so that he could individually heal what he continued to experience in this lifetime. There's people that come in, and matter of fact, the man physically had a kind of like a birthmark, but it wasn't exactly a birthmark, rippled skin in the back of his lower spine that was an indication of that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate all your research. I love that you mentioned, that Sufism and Hazrat and I have done a lot of, I've been studying Sufism for a long time in a healing school, where, we also acknowledge that if you get the lesson, then the physical compensation can be
Right.
off. And also in your research, I don't know if you've come across it, you might enjoy Ibn Arabi.
Oh, yeah.
Who talks a lot about the soul.
I didn't bring up Ibn Arabi. I think he's in the same category, in my opinion, as Nisargadatta. I mean, they are like way out there for most people. Yeah, but Ibn Arabi is a personal favorite, yes.
I love what you're doing. I'd love to come to the day spring thing you mentioned.
Okay. If you get the newsletter, or Ferial can send you the newsletter. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I've so enjoyed this, and it's just the beginning. This is not the end, obviously. I've been looking for a group to meditate with, and I'd like to hear more about the women's meditation group that you mentioned, and how I can learn more about it and maybe join it.
Okay. Everyone except men are welcome. And men are welcome on the equinoxes and solstices. Are you familiar with Rising Tide Spiritual Center? Okay. Patricia, do you have one of our cards? I do. Okay. Patricia's going to give you a card. Sign up for the newsletter, and we meet on the third Friday of every month at Rising Tide. And the woman who is now coordinating is sitting right in front of you, and she will tell you everything you want to know about it after we're done. Yes, ma'am. Can't hear you.
I have a couple of questions. So in yoga philosophy, there's an understanding of reincarnation and karma. So what is your understanding in terms of karma from past lives and things like this influencing the next life, or this life and the next life?
Karma means action. And I think sometimes we get very hung up on the psychological teachings of karma and retribution. Karma is just an effect, an action with a cause and an effect. So I think the Buddhists are not going to get hung up on karma. The yogis do. And the Hindu philosophies do talk a lot about karma, and you get into the whole class system. There's 4 different kinds of training in the yoga philosophy. I personally would focus on Bhakti and Raja Yoga. And Bhakti is, Yogananda was Bhakti Yoga. Sri Yukteswar was Gnana, knowledge yoga. And Raja would be the meditation and reaching for the higher elements. But as far as there's physical yoga, but I go easy on the karmic stuff, just over experience. Okay? Hi.
Would you repeat it because of the infinity symbol in the time that your grandmother visited you?
Okay, the significance of it? Well, the symbol itself, it's still up there. The symbol itself is continuity. It doesn't end. If you follow the 8. She handed me the number 8, and I saw it as the number 8. And until she said turn it on its side, it didn't register. So there's another symbol called the Enzo, which is another kind of an infinity in the Japanese Zen tradition, but it's open at the top. It's a circle with the opening. So it takes you into other realms. It's a universal symbol. It is also tied in with the Celtic knots. So if you took 2 of those infinity symbols and you don't know if I have my pointer, take another one and put it vertically over that, and you've got the infinity cross, which also is a symbol of continuity. What up, Star?
I have a question.
Okay.
So some go back right away. You said, what?
You mean reincarnate right away?
So I'm always a little confused because when we're told that when we pass, we will meet our relatives, friends, how does that work? They go back right away?
They may still be there. No, not everybody goes back right away.
I do know that, but what about the ones who do then? You will not be meeting them?
Well, let me take a, dare I go there? There are portions of the soul is fractally and multidimensional. You could have a soul incarnating in 10 different dimensions at one time. You can have 10% of the soul on the other side, while the 90% has reincarnated on Earth already. So, I know. I know.
Still see a portion of it,
Yeah,
and not only in this life, but how they connect with you in the past.
right.
I always tell people, you get all the answers, and guess what? It doesn't mean anything anymore. It's
Yeah.
not as important as you thought it was.
Right. Nothing is important on that side. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain the monad?
Oh, God. Come to the retreat. Okay? Yes.
I think one of the slides said that consciousness was matter. Is that right?
Matter comes from consciousness.
Okay.
We are creating reality out of our thoughts and beliefs and emotions from the conscious field. We are creating form out of consciousness.
Okay, I was trying to get a little bit more information about consciousness.
It's in the book.
Pardon me?
It's in that book.
Okay.
Anybody? Okay. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate you all being here.